Now, pressure is mounting on Israel after 7 people working for the charity World Central Kitchen were killed in an Israeli strike in Gaza. 3 British nationals were among those killed, and the UK government today is demanding an immediate, impartial investigation. Now, the United Nations is calling for that as well, and indeed the UN chief, Antonio Guterres, called the killings unconscionable. He also said it was an inevitable result of the way the war is being conducted. To tell us a bit more, Leela Jacinto is with me in the studio. And Leela, for the UN Secretary General to describe these strikes as inevitable, it's quite a phrase, isn't it? What did you make of his language?
Yeah, it almost sounds fatalistic, doesn't it? Look, Nadia, this was going to enter its 6th month, and there are a lot of things that are seeming familiar, and to use Antonio Guterres' term, inevitable. And that includes the politicization and weaponization of aid and food. Now, what happens with aid, and this is an old thing. This is as far as history where, power is linked to resources. Resource in Gaza right now, the only resource for survival is aid. So it is but natural that whoever controls this aid controls the levers of power. Aid agencies, of course, know this, and they have decades of experiencing in managing this. In Gaza, the main agency that handles this is the UN Agency for Palestinians, UNRWA. They have experience in managing this. Now, this is where politics comes in. Israel has a decades-long animus to the UN agency, UNRWA. Why is this? This goes back really to the founding of Israel in 1948, because UNRWA was founded in 1949 by a UN General Assembly resolution. For Israel, the very existence of this organization means it's the persistence of the Palestinian refugee problem. And that is linked to a very central issue of the Israeli-Palestinian crisis, which is the right to return of the Palestinian refugees. So Israel's animus to UNRWA is, comes out publicly. Benjamin Netanyahu has said it's the only UN agency that caters solely to the Palestinian people. He has asked for other UN agencies to take on this mission. Now, but this animus has been particularly ratcheted up after the October 7th Hamas attacks. And in January, Israel charged 12 UNRWA staff members out of a total of 13,000 staff members of participating in the October 7th Hamas attacks. That led to the withdrawing of funding from a number of Western powers. The folly of this was seen in February, when we have what is now called the Flower Massacre, when nearly 180 people, Gazans, were killed in a stampede and shooting just trying to access this aid. So since then, most Western countries have resumed funding UNRWA, but not the U.S., because U.S. Congress has blocked U.S. funding of this agency until March 2025. What is happening now is what we are seeing is a collapse of law and order once the aid gets in. And that's what the U.S. is particularly concerned about and has been warning about, the lack of law and order in order to get this aid to a population that is starving.
So tell us a bit more about then. Do we know how aid is reaching people? What's happening now with policing in Gaza? What's happening with law and order?
Well, the Biden administration has been warning Israeli officials about the collapse of law and order, and has been, this is according to a report by the U.S. news website Axios, quoting U.S. and Israeli officials saying that the Biden administration is telling Israeli officials not to target civilian police in Gaza. Israel says the police is Hamas. And now this is reminiscent, this is another inevitability of what happened in Iraq in 2003,
right,
when the U.S. broke down the Ba'ath Party, Saddam Hussein's Ba'ath Party. What went with it was all the administrative structures and everything. At the heart of this is, you come to the question of who is Hamas? Is a medical official who's working in a Hamas-run strip Hamas? Is a civilian policeman Hamas? And there is every evidence that the U.S. is aware that there are civilian police forces members who could be and are working with Hamas, but are absolutely necessary. So you see how inevitable this all is. We have plenty of experience of this. Now, with Israel targeting the police, what the Israel is now looking at is clans taking over. Now, this is dismayingly inevitable, because this is not the first time when there is a collapse of social order with war and conflict that clans are suddenly brought into the picture.
What do we know about these clans, Leela?
Well, Gaza has a number of clans. Among the best-known clans, there are some pretty big ones, are the Dogmush clan. They were the ones that came into the news when they were in 2007, when British journalist Alan Johnson was kidnapped. It was by this clan. These clans, they're armed. They have armed fighters. They have turfs. They sometimes fight with Hamas. Some of them are aligned with Fatah, which is Palestinian President Abbas's. And then they come to an agreement with Hamas. Israel's plan, according to U.S. news reports, is to divide the Strip into regions and sub-regions and give control of aid distribution to these clan leaders. Now, when you are seeing a collapse of institutions and you bring in clans with traditional, patriarchal, unaccountable structures, you really see that the lessons of the past have not been learned. And probably UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres was referring to the inevitability of what happens after a military operation and an invasion. That is the easy part. The really difficult part is how are you going to maintain order after that?